Welcome to Inside the Huddle with Heath and Hyams. I'm Jimmy Hyams, along with Heath Shuler, former star quarterback at the University of Tennessee. He was a Heisman Trophy runner-up. He was the number 3 pick overall in the draft just a couple of years ago. Heath Shuler, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Big game coming up.
Yeah, there is a big game, but I tell you what, this is the 33rd anniversary of a big game that occurred in Athens, Georgia, when Heath Shuler led Tennessee to a 34-31 victory. And the signature play, Heath, that I remember, 4th and 14, you drill Ronald Davis in the chest. He had no choice but to catch it. And you end up beating Georgia 34-31. Philip Fulmer was the interim coach. I know that's got to be a great memory. That was kind of your coming out moment.
It really was. If there's one play that kind of welcomed me to the SEC or welcomed me to college football, it was that play. It was. I tell I always say, oh, we didn't know it was fourth down. We really did. But you try to go into the huddle and make it relaxed feeling and try to get your team to, they had a really good football. They were number 2 or number 3 team ranked in the country, and we're playing at Georgia, going between the hedges. But it just ended up, everything worked out with. I thought we really gelled as an offense. We become a very balanced team that day. Offensively, we were 50% pass, 50% run. We had 2 incredible running backs and then we had some great receivers, Ronald Davis, Corey Fleming, and of course Craig Faulkner. And those guys did a phenomenal job all day long. Not only when they caught the ball, but they were actually blocking extremely well, allowing our running backs to get out. And then I ran a lot. I mean, that day we kind of changed. We made it difficult and challenging on their defense because we got in the red zone and we started with the option game, and it was really, really hard for anyone to defend us in an option game.
That moment was not too big then for Heath Shuler. We'll see if it's not too big for Joey Aguilar, Tennessee's quarterback. But we'll go ahead and jump to our first segment. Our first segment is brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Now, whether you're building whatever building materials you need, they have got it. I actually went to their 105th anniversary celebration early this summer. It was fantastic. They can provide you with commercial building materials. They can provide you with residential building materials. They've got it all. If you're starting a project, you know who to call. A.G. Hines Company, selling building materials since anyone can remember. All right, we'll cap Tennessee's victory over ETSU, a one-sided game. It was 72-17. It was the highest scoring game in the modern era. It's not a school record for scoring points, as some have reported. It was the highest in the modern era. But Tennessee gets an easy win. They rest their starters in the second half. Joey Aguilar looked comfortable. He looked confident. Looked even better than he did week 1, although the competition was not that stiff. Heath, your assessment of Tennessee's home opening win over ETSU?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I can say is it really kind of starts with Joey Aguilar. I mean, if you look from the quarterback's position, watch him on the sideline. He's constantly communicating with his wide receivers, constantly communicating with the offensive line, and with his, I think it's that poise that he has. That sense of calmness when things break down. I think he's able to utilize his skills of getting out of the pocket, use his legs. But when he gets out of the pocket, he's not looking to run. He's looking to throw the ball first. And I think that's what kind of separates him from a lot of other quarterbacks. We haven't given up a sack. I think our offensive line has gelled pretty well. We got 2 receivers that's really stepped up. And then, of course, I think our running backs, like you said, we haven't played the talent that we're going to play on Saturday, but they actually performed at a very high level again offensively. Defensively, I thought we played really sound. I don't think they're a really good offense. However, I do think they have 2 really good quarterbacks at East Tennessee State. Those 2 quarterbacks,
Power 5.
I thought they played very, very well. They made some throws, but all in all, what was it, 5 sacks? We got after them, and we made it difficult and challenging on the quarterbacks to be able to perform at a very high level because they just didn't have the time to do so.
I like the fact that Chris Brazel and Mike Matthews each had over 100 yards, and somebody said, well, but there were a couple of drops. Not by the wide receivers.
That's right.
It was a drop by the tight end and a drop by the running back. So I thought the wide receivers performed well. The offensive line, as you mentioned, they still don't have what they projected to be their starting 5 at the beginning of the year because David Sanders is still out. But I think this offensive line looks to be gelling and performing as needed. They're running the ball well. They're protecting the quarterback. They're doing the things that are necessary. The running back situation, 1, 2, 3. I don't know that there's a deeper unit in the SEC than what Tennessee has shown. I will say this, though. in watching that game, it looked like with Joey Aguilar, there was a clear distinction between him and the backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think so. I think it really took. Um, I thought George, came out and played pretty well from the beginning. Um, I think with all those quarterbacks, I think you just kind of have a little bit of time that it takes.
Mhm.
If you look at it, Joey's passed over 10,000 yards in college.
Yeah.
So he's got a lot more time. And I think that's the reason why the coaching staff went with Joey, because, he had more of experience. And I think Jake, was a little nervous maybe in the beginning and didn't perform. But I think at the end, you were able to see his physicality. I mean, he runs the ball well. He's a very strong athlete. I thought George came in and played well, but you're right. I think there was a distinct difference certainly in that game. The key is we got both young quarterbacks in the game. And if something were to ever happen, and you haven't read that happens to your starting quarterback, at least you have some playing time and experience from those guys behind him.
You ended up with one touchdown nullified by holding penalty. But other than that, I just didn't see too much to pick at with them. Maybe the second team defense didn't shut them down like
Yeah.
maybe you'd want to. But I thought overall it was a very strong effort by Tennessee to get the win. And the one thing about Josh Heupel, man, if you are a little bit outmanned, you're not going to have a close call with him.
No,
Yeah,
he's going to exploit all the weaknesses on the defense.
Yeah. So unlike what Georgia had against Austin Peay. All right. Let's move on to our second segment. Our second segment is brought to you by Gambuza's Barbershop. At Gambuza's Barbershop, they're the undisputed leader in Knoxville market. They offer a barbershop experience that redefines men's grooming. They set the standard for quality and style, from precision haircuts to shaves. Gambuza's Barbershop. Men belong here. All right, Josh Heupel, we mentioned he doesn't lose much at home and he dominates teams that he outmans. If you go back to the loss against Ole Miss at home, Tennessee has only lost 2 games since then, and that was back in 2021. Since then, he's 23-2, the only 2 losses to Georgia. Georgia handled Tennessee in both cases. They're the only 2 losses that Tennessee has had since then. But during that time frame, what has Josh Heupel done at home? He's beaten Alabama twice.
That's right.
What has he done at home? He's beaten Florida twice. What's he done at home? He beat a ranked Kentucky team. So they have been outstanding at home, and contributing to that, Heath, has been an outstanding crowd. Neyland Stadium is rocking for big games.
If you look at that first Alabama game, the first big win we had against Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, we did a show about that, and I think they had 14 penalties. A Saban team to have 14 penalties, and of those, was legal procedure was on motion movement. It was always something. They had a breakdown in their offensive line, the receivers. They were moving illegal procedures. I mean, it was just nonstop of the number of penalties. And from I was on the field during that game. It was so loud, it was deafening. There's no way they could be able. I mean, I was yelling with the guy standing beside me because it was so loud. The fans will play an important role in a victory if we can just be loud. And if you're not going to be loud, give your ticket to somebody else going to be louder than you, right? The loudest we possibly can be. We're going to have a really a talent wise. I mean, they may still I think they have us out edged a little bit talent wise, but playing at home with our crowd, with our fans, I think that gives us a strong edge and an opportunity to win this game.
I think Saban needed a new headset after that because there are a lot of grass stains on it from him not being too happy with all those penalties and all those points that Tennessee was scoring. The other thing about this weekend, it's game days here, ESPN, and it's as big a game as there is in the country. Tennessee goes in ranked number 15. Georgia on the coaches poll is ranked as high as number 3. So it is absolutely a huge game. When game day's here, Tennessee's 5-6, but Tennessee's won 3 in a row when game day has been in Knoxville. So we'll see how Tennessee fares. But I just think, Heath, this home field advantage that Tennessee has created, it certainly benefits, and you had it when you were playing it, but
yeah,
if you're really good, then the home crowd can help you.
They can.
If you're not very good, then you're going to get blown out. But I think this could be a huge game, in particular when you're seeing Georgia go on the road for the first time with the quarterback for the first time in a hostile environment.
A young quarterback. This will be his 3rd start. I just think it's going to be so challenging. There's not enough crowd noise that you can produce at practice. The environment at practice is not the way he's going to see it. It's going to be, and he's on a big stage now. I mean, ESPN Game Day is going to be there. This is one of those things that, you talk about a young quarterback is how is he going to be able to go in and has he prepared properly? Is he going to have that calm, and is he going to be poised? I personally don't think that he's quite ready for that yet. I do think I liked how he kind of dinks the ball around. He keeps it away from the defense. He's not willing to throw the ball down the field. And if you looked at one of our weaknesses in week one against Syracuse, it was completing the ball deeper down the dig routes, deeper down the field, and that was a little bit of an issue that we had on third down. I just don't think. I think we've got the right formula right now. And I think our special teams are better than their special teams too. I just think we got a good formula, but we can't make the silly mistakes. We can't shoot ourselves in the foot, right? We have to be able to protect the football and control the line of scrimmage.
All right, so we'll see how the Tennessee home field advantage impacts Georgia. Let's get to our next segment. Our next segment is brought to you by Home Federal Bank. At Home Federal, they were founded in Knoxville over 100 years ago. They serve the community with 23 branches in Knox County, Anderson County, Blount County, and Sevier County. Home Federal is beholden to its local clients. Home Federal, serving customers' diverse financial needs. All right, so we talked about Tennessee against ETSU. Let's take a look at what Georgia's done in its first two games. They overwhelmed Marshall, which is not very good. Beat Marshall 48-7. Marshall just lost to Montana State.
Yeah.
Gunnar Stockton was 14 of 24 passing, but the key was he had 10 rushes. He had 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. The one thing he didn't do was throw it downfield much. Georgia, against Marshall, had one play of over 25 yards. Now, against Austin Peay, Georgia struggled. They moved the kickoff early. There was a halftime delay. You had weather issues. I don't think Georgia was real invested in that game. They ended up winning it 28-6. They ended up with they had no plays of more than 23 yards against Austin Peay.
Going back to Stockton, I think that's the problem that you have. What happens to a young quarterback early on in their career? When they're not comfortable in the pocket, what do? They run. And so if he's not comfortable getting the ball down the field and he's going through his progressions, he's a 1-2 guy. Probably I'm looking at 1 route, 2 route, and I'm getting out of the way. Or he's going initial route, skipping 2 and 3 and throwing the dink route to number 4. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. So I think that kind of plays a part of why his rushing yards are high, because he's probably not going through his progression. We had a quarterback last year that didn't go through their progression and oftentimes would find his way out of the pocket and running. Mm-hmm. I think once you get you put the pressure on, and you'll have to contain him because he runs well. He does run well. And he's not the fastest guy on the field, but he runs and able to pick up the first down.
I talked to a guy that covers them, and he said that Stockton has not seen open receivers downfield, that he's really quick to go to the second.
Yes, that's right.
And so, I'm not saying he's missing them because he's overthrowing them. He's missing them because he doesn't see them downfield.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. And if I'm Tennessee and I'm caught onto that, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of disguises his way.
Oh, and how our backers play. Mm-hmm. I mean, give them an opportunity to make some sacks. A little delay tactic. You're going to see some zone blitz. I think you're going to put him in a very difficult, challenging situation. They're probably going to do that the same way as us. I mean, look, there's one thing about Kirby Smart and his defensive coordinators. They know how to defend Tennessee. They've done it. Right? The question is what wrinkle we haven't showed them this year so far. Mm-hmm. I think it's a totally different offense than we've seen in the last 2 years. I think this offense is much more like the Hendon Hooker years. I think the fast pace, the openness, we're more motions. I mean, we're doing more out of the backfield in motions than we have ever done at any point in time. And you're talking about a quarterback that didn't get here until the summertime.
Yeah.
And he didn't go through spring ball. I'm very impressed of the progression that he has made in such a quick period of time.
All right, also with Georgia against Austin Peay, they had 3 running backs that gained over 55 yards. Their leading receiver is Colby Young. He had 7 catches in that game. He's got 9 this year. Georgia did have a 99-yard touchdown drive against Austin Peay. But one thing that struck me was that Georgia got to the 1 yard line in late in the first half, first and goal to goal, and they don't score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Now the clock was they didn't have much time left in the half, but they threw a couple incompletions. They ran it, didn't make it, and they couldn't score. And I'm thinking, okay, doesn't that bring into question your offensive line if you can't score from the 1 yard line against Austin Peay?
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising because Georgia's done such a great job over the last 10 years of getting up front and controlling that line of scrimmage. And I think it's their big question mark is how well is I think their defensive front's going to play well.
Yes.
I think they're very talented there. I'm just not so sure that their offensive front is where they had expected it to be at this point in time in the season. I mean, game 3, you would think against, or the second game against Austin Peay, you thought they'd have been able to, to kind of punch it in the end zone. That's not the typical Georgia offensive line that we've seen in the last 10 years.
Austin Peay was 16 of 23 passing for 151 yards. I didn't see all of the game, so I don't know if there were dink downs, slant. I don't know what they completed. That's a pretty high percentage though against the Georgia defense.
Yeah. And, we saw Austin Peay came in here and played us very well, right? I mean, there was a time that happened to us, and was it looking ahead? Was it were they not focused in the game? I mean,
Sure.
We've been there before, right? So there's a lot of tangibles and uncertainty that you don't know, and with the early game, the delay of weather delay they had. I feel good about where we are going into this game.
One other thing about Georgia, and this remains the element of the unknown. Georgia led the nation last year with 36 drop passes. They've revamped their receiving core. Kobe Young is a transfer from Miami. I mentioned him earlier. He leads them in receiving. Oscar Delp at tight end is a good player. But they have now so far in 2 games, they haven't been dropping a bunch of passes, but we'll see if that rears its head against Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. All right, let's get to our next segment. It's brought to you by General Insurance Services. They're located off Hardin Valley Road. They offer senior discounts, great prices on car insurance. They offer auto and home bundling, and you get a quote in just a couple of minutes. Check them out, General Insurance Services, a Shuler family-owned business. Navy Shuler's got a lot
That's
to do with
it. Navy has a lot to do with it. That's his Navy. Yeah. Navy started the company with Grant Richardson not too long ago, along with my father-in-law, who has been in the business for over 50 years.
All right, Georgia, they have been the best program in the nation over the last 4 years. What's their record? How about 55-5? 3 of those losses were to Alabama. They lost a year ago to Notre Dame in the playoffs, and then they lost to Ole Miss as well. So those are the only, and that was a game at Oxford. Those are the only losses. Now, what's the common thread in those defeats? I got to give John Pennington of the Sports Source credit for this because he looked this up. Georgia's 5 worst rushing games were in those defeats. Now, it wasn't necessarily the yards they rushed for. It was 3 yards per carry, or 1.7 yards per carry, or 2.1, or 2.5, or 3.6.
Wow.
So they have struggled running the football in those defeats. To me, a good number for Tennessee, if you can hold them to 3.5, would be a really good number for Tennessee.
If you could definitely do that's and we have if what the folks from Georgia are saying that there's a question mark at that offensive line, and one of our strengths is our front 7, then we got a great opportunity to be able to give them stay in that. Don't let them have over 4 yards. That 3.3, 3.4, 3.6 would be really good.
Here's another common thread in those 5 Georgia defeats. They've lost the turnover battle in every one. They lost it by -3, by -2, by -2, by -2, by -1. So the turnover margin in those Georgia defeats is significant. Obviously, it would benefit Tennessee if they can be on the plus end of that.
Well, turnovers are always the one that kills you. If you give up the ball deep in your own territory, they get a quick score. It changes the game, not only from the scoreboard, but it really changes the momentum of the game and how things are going. And you got momentum on your side. Then you start playing better. You have more confidence, and things go well. That's where the key to, if you really, I mean, we always talk about the keys to success, right? it's really the same ones every week, right? In the reality, we mix them up because there's a few things, and this week in particular, I think there's one, specific down that we've got to be very good at. But it's really control the line of scrimmage and don't turn the ball over.
Yeah, turnovers, run the ball, stop the run.
Yeah, and if you
Those
look
help.
at this, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're looking at that 3 yards at the max in their losses and their turnover ratio, that means they lost in the trenches and they turn the ball over more frequently. And those are the things that will get you beat in a game.
All right, here's number 3 on that list of the common threads of Georgia's 5 losses in the last 4 years. Teams have averaged 5.4 plays of at least 20 yards.
Mm.
And in the wins that Georgia has during that time frame, they've only given up 2.8 plays of at least 20 yards. Explosive plays for Tennessee is going to be a big key.
It is. I mean, and I think Joey Aguilar gives us that opportunity because he's not scared to throw the ball down the middle of the field. I mean, look, we may get it. I always say this: if you throw the ball down the field and it gets tipped for an interception, and that was 3rd down, that's like a punt, right? But if you don't ever throw it, you don't get an opportunity for a touchdown or a big play that changes the momentum in that game. Sometimes it's not a touchdown that changes the momentum. It's actually one big play on a crucial down and distance that makes a difference and gives you that momentum that allows you to punch the ball in for a touchdown later.
Well, make sure if you do throw that interception on 3rd down, you tackle the guy that made the interception.
Yes, you do. That's
Get,
right.
get that guy down.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're way down the field, right?
All right. So those are the common threads with the Georgia defeats. We'll see if Tennessee can match any of those. All right. Let's get to our next segment. Our next segment is brought to you by Thrivent. Now, whether your retirement is far off, maybe it's fast approaching, now's the time to plan with the expert team at TriStar Wealth Advisors with Thrivent. Kevin Cornishell, Derek Cornishell, Chad Brogdon, Natalie England. They're there to help you work through any problems and work toward your goals. Give them a call at 865-494-2667. The quarterback battle. Probably too simplistic to say whichever quarterback plays the best gets the win, but we do want to talk about comparing the quarterbacks. So, Joey Aguilar, 23 of 31, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns in the first half only against ETSU. That's all he played.
Yep.
Against Syracuse, 16 of 28, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mentioned I think he's playing with more confidence, more comfortable. He is poised. He's seeing the field. I think he's done an admirable job so far.
And you hate to think of it like this, and I never want to, but I think he's done as good a job coming into a Tennessee offense of any quarterback has ever done this at this stage. I mean, 2 starts, 2 very successful starts, and not having that time. Yes, I think maybe there's been others that's done well because they've had spring ball to go through,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, but it's almost like he's a true freshman in this offense. Now he does have the experience, which is you can't substitute for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I still say that he's just so impressive, leadership and his ability to comprehend and understand this offense so quickly. That's hats off to the other Joey in that quarterback room, and that's Joey Halsley, who's the quarterback coach.
I was going to say, I think a lot of that has to do with coaching. You're putting him in position to be successful,
Yes,
and you're probably running plays that he feels comfortable with.
that's right, you are. And I think as you see this season progresses, you're going to see different wrinkles that because of him being comfortable throwing the ball down the field. I think it's really going to change because the last 2 years we have not had quarterbacks that had felt comfortable enough to throw the ball down the field,
Mhm.
right? And so
Or over the middle.
or over the middle.
Mhm.
So now you got a quarterback that's willing to do that and has been successful already this year to do it. And look what's happened when we throw the ball over the middle of the field and we make those type throws. We're moving sticks. Those 3rd downs are now becoming 1st downs.
Here's what Kirby Smart had to say about Joey Aguilar. He's playing really effectively, great arm talent,
We'd agree with that.
really good athlete. Sounds like he's talking about Heath Shuler. Can tell he understands the system, gets the ball out quickly, makes plays with his legs, which you have to do in this league.
Yes.
Those are pretty admirable comments.
Coach is spot on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we got Gunnar Stockton. All right. So he ran well in the opener, didn't run as much against Austin Peay, probably didn't need
Yeah.
to. Checks it down a lot. As I mentioned earlier, a reporter that watches him play said he has not been seeing wide receivers downfield. Heath, to simplify it, do you think if Aguilar outplays Gunnar Stockton, Tennessee wins?
Absolutely. If we're able, because if he outplays him, that means we've won the turnover ratio, right? If he outplays him, that's most likely. I mean, you can have some
Yeah.
fumbles by the running back, but that's not as frequently. But that means we win one of those areas, and if he outplays him, that means we've had time to throw the football. And if we're throwing the football, that means we're also running the ball effectively because it takes both in this offense.
All right, so let me mention this. So this is Gunnar Stockton's first start and on the road in a hostile environment. Arch
Very
Manning,
hostile.
Arch Manning made a first start, hostile environment, Ohio State, didn't score the first three quarters, and Texas lost 14-7. Bryce Underwood, Michigan's standout talented freshman quarterback, goes to Oklahoma. First road start, 9 of 24. And then Oklahoma wins 24-13. The point is that if you're making your first start on the road, it can be a challenge in a hostile environment. Do you think that the Tennessee defense and fans can rattle Gunnar Stockton?
Well, I hope that the folks that are listening today and watching this podcast are realizing that, from our perspective, I mean, Jimmy, you're there at the stadium every game. You haven't missed games in decades. You literally understand and you can see it firsthand when you have disruptions and they cannot communicate at the line of scrimmage. The quarterback can't communicate with the running backs or the receivers or the linemen. It totally disrupts your offense. The noise factor is as big a factor as a defensive end rushing the quarterback. It's that much because if the offense is not on the same page, you have multiple breakdowns throughout that offense. And when you have breakdowns, you have sacks, you have fumbles, you have guys going the wrong way. The protection was supposed to go left and then it went right. So you literally have, to me, and I remember playing at Florida. To me, Florida was always the hardest place to play. And if you cannot communicate, it makes it twice as challenging, and especially for a young quarterback going in there. So we just need to do everything we can up front from the first snap, make it louder than it's ever been in Neyland Stadium.
If memory serves, when you played at Florida, I think it was 41-35, and you
38, yeah, something, yeah.
3 touchdowns to Billy Williams.
Yeah, 3 to Billy, 5 total.
Yeah.
And it was still, you couldn't hear.
Yeah. Well, you didn't need to, I guess. The problem was they got 41.
They got 41.
Yeah,
they had the ball last.
Yeah, you rang up a lot of points on Florida. All right, well, we'll see how Stockton handles it. It's going to be interesting to see and the amount of pressure that Tennessee applies to him. All right, let's move to our next segment. That's brought to you by Marcos Garza Law Firm. These are attorneys that care about their clients. And know this, they are local. They are proven. Quality attorneys that are on your side. Don't hire somebody from out of state that doesn't know the landscape of East Tennessee or Knoxville. Go to Marcos Garza Law Firm. Let Marcos Garza help you. Learn more at garzalaw.com. All right, let's take a look at what Tennessee's opponents have done, mostly in the SEC. But I will point out that Syracuse, which I think is about a 500 team, they needed overtime to beat UConn. I don't know if that was a hangover. Maybe they're not quite that good. Oklahoma beating Michigan. This, I have said, I believe, is the most improved team in the SEC.
Without a doubt.
John Mateer, quarterback. That's a really good football team, I believe.
They've been playing really well. I watched that first game, and it was unbelievable that I was not expecting that type of offense. I wasn't expecting that type of playing for Oklahoma. It really caught me off guard. I really thought they'd be in the middle of the pack this year. Now I think they're at the upper end of the SEC.
They're easily a top 25 team, I believe.
Without a doubt.
Their defense was actually pretty good last year. Their offense.
Yeah, that's right. Their offense has struggled.
Now they brought in Mateer. They brought in his offensive coordinator, Arbuckle from Washington State. And it looks like Brent Venables has turned Arbuckle loose to go run with
He
you.
really has. Yeah.
I think
And that's
a really good
unusual
football
for for a defensive coordinator saying run what you'd like to run.
Well, if you remember, I think I've got this right. So Jimbo Fisher brings in Bobby Petrino to Texas A&M.
That's right. Yes.
And he wouldn't let Petrino run it off.
Wouldn't let him run his offense.
So what good does it do you to bring in somebody like that? So I think Oklahoma's really good. They play Temple, and that'll be a one-sided game. Arkansas under Taylor Green is scoring a ton of points. And by the way, their offense coordinator is Bobby Petrino,
Yes.
and Sam Pittman has turned him loose. That's a really good
Absolutely.
offensive team.
Great
find out-
quarterback.
Yes, and athletic. We'll find out more about them when they play Ole Miss. But I think Arkansas is a dangerous opponent for Tennessee when you have quarterbacks of the caliber of Mateer and Taylor Green. That's going to be a challenge for Tennessee. So, all right, Alabama. They lost to Florida State. Then they scored 73 against Louisiana Monroe. If you're an Alabama apologist and you're blindfolded, you'll remind people that Nick Saban lost to Louisiana Monroe, and Kalen DeBoer beat him 73 points on them. So I don't know how many Alabama fans are taking.
Hey, let me tell you what, after that, a lot of my friends, my Alabama friends were like, I mean, it was like, hey, I'm going to get the U-Haul ready for coach. I mean, they were ready to get him out of there.
All right. Mississippi State, they upset Arizona State. Arizona State, now don't forget, they won their conference and they made the college football playoff and they scared the heck out of Texas. They had a good
Yes.
chance to beat them. Mississippi State beats them in Starkville with all those cowbells. That's a really good win for State. It's a really good win for their second-year coach, Jeff Levy.
Yeah, that's that same offense that Heupel runs. It's
Right.
Levy was at Central Florida with Heupel, and I mean, really, I really like him as a person. A really great guy. Obviously, really trying to turn that program around. So now, who's the sleeper this year in the SEC? Who's the one that you think that at the end of the year was like we had never thought? Is it the Oklahoma that you talked about? Which team is it that's really come up? I mean, I would say last year we could say Vandy was a sleeper.
Yeah.
So who is it this year in the SEC that you feel that's really made a big jump, whether it be off season and getting the players in or recruiting or changing their offense or defense, that's really going to make a difference in the
I
SEC.
think it's Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But they had a losing record last year.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can go from a losing record to being a top 25 team and potentially winning 9 games,
Yeah.
I think it's Oklahoma. Now, the other one that nobody's talking about as much is Arkansas.
Yeah.
Because that quarterback is special now. That cat can
He
play.
really is.
And they've got a really good offense tailored to his skills. So that's another one to watch for. Another team that I listed here to take a look at is Vanderbilt. So they're down to Virginia Tech by 10 points, and they outscored Virginia Tech 34-0.
Yeah.
To end the game. Vanderbilt's, they're no joke. Now, I'll say this. They beat Alabama last year, and then Tennessee, after the first quarter, ran Vanderbilt out of the stadium.
Yes.
So there's still a difference in Tennessee and Vanderbilt as long as Tennessee shows up to play. But Vanderbilt is
Their coach has them, and they have a lot of confidence right now.
They do.
Coach has done a really good job of saying we can compete in the SEC.
Yeah. And here's the other one out there that's an opponent for Tennessee, and that is Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So Florida wins their opener. They then lose to South Florida. They had 11 penalties. They had a knucklehead player that spit on a South Florida player that helped extend the game-winning field goal drive. So it's 18-16. Alex Golish, the former Tennessee offensive coordinator, the head coach of South Florida, gets the win there. I cannot see Billy Napier surviving this. He goes to LSU. He's also got Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, South Carolina, Texas A&M.
He's got the hardest schedule in the country.
Yes.
He does have the hardest schedule in the country.
So I can't see. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. It's LSU, Miami, Texas, and Texas A&M. That's the next 4 opponents that they play, and then they got Mississippi State and Georgia. Yeah, they gave me a vote of conference last year, and then they ended up winning a few games down the stretch and some good wins.
Yeah, they did.
Ole
Yeah.
Miss.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see them getting through this. They could be 1-5. 1-5
with as much talent as they have in that state.
Yes.
Now they're having to compete now. Obviously, South Florida's done well. I mean, they've obviously got some players in. Miami's gotten better. Florida State had a big win early now. So, but there's a lot of talent in the state of Florida.
There is, and they've either not been able to harness it or they're not coaching it as well as they needed to. But the dumb penalties they had against South Florida were their undoing in part. So, I think Billy Napier survived last year. I don't see him surviving this year.
Yeah, and it seems to me like, I think that Josh Heupel and his staff does a better job of developing players than any coach in the SEC. I think he really does. It's one thing to recruit a bunch of 5 stars, but when you're taking 3 and 4 stars and you're developing, they're becoming 5 stars. they've done very, very well. I think there's other coaches that recruit well and depend upon how their ratings were out of high school. And there's a big difference between high school and college. And so they're dependent upon that and they're just not developing these players. So as a young player in high school, you need to start looking for those coaches that are developing the best quality players based upon where they came in and where they ended up and where they ended up in the draft.
Which is a good segue to our next topic, and that is going to be not just the injuries, but the talent of Georgia versus Tennessee. So we'll get to that in our next segment, which is brought to you by Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. You can check out the great selection of the Ford F-150s, the Ford Escape, the Ford Bronco. You'll find low prices and a big selection on new and pre-owned vehicles. Local, loyal, and ready to serve. That's Ray Varner Ford in Clinton. All right, Tennessee, we'll go through their injury list. They've got 3 defensive backs that are out. David Hobbs, a defensive tackle, and then Moy and Jackson Moy, and then Weathersby. I don't know if Weathersby's going to play. Not sure about. I know Hobbs is
Questionable,
out.
right? I mean,
Yeah, Dobbs is definitely out, but he's questionable. The cornerbacks, Ricky Gibson, Jamad McCoy, they definitely will not play. So that's a concern, even though I think that Colton Hood and Ty Redmond have done a nice job at the corners. But Georgia's a different ballgame. And then at right tackle, the freshman who's expected to start from day one, David Sanders, has not played yet. All right, let's start with
I'm
how.
not surprised that well, Sanders hasn't played, but I'm not surprised they've done so well. Is a freshman. It's kind of like we talked about those a freshman quarterback. When do you bring in that true freshman into that mix of that? Is it let's hold him out for one more game? What's the issue? What's the problem? McCoy on defense. I'm not surprised with him not coming back yet.
No, he's
Yeah,
still got an ACL,
ACL injury in
yeah.
January. I'm not surprised that he's still on the mends and getting him back, later in the season. But we got a lot of guys that are out.
Well, let's talk about the impact of those injuries. So let's start on the defensive line with
Yes.
3 guys potentially being out. I thought Tennessee had really good depth on the defensive line entering this season. How big of a blow is that going against Georgia?
Well, it is because it's those repetitions coming in when you're almost 2 platooning, right?
Mhm.
You got a series, the next guy's got a series. Now you're going to have more players playing more snaps at that position. So you're not going to be as fresh coming in as you may have been with losing 3 players at that defensive front.
All right, let's talk about the cornerback situation. Gibson and McCoy are out. We mentioned the Hood and Redmond have replaced them. Jalen McMurray has been playing the nickel position. He
Yes.
just played
Mhm.
corner. Boo Carter could play the nickel some. He played more in the nickel position
Yeah.
last week. What impact do you think having those 2 guys out will have on Tennessee?
Gosh, I think they're playing with a lot of confidence. I mean, I think it's always when you're losing some starters, there's a reason they're the starters. They've been performing at a higher level, performing better. But these 2 guys have come in and play, Redmond's to come in and Hood's played well.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's, it makes you feel good about when the other 2 are back, how you can actually, have depth at that position. We don't have a lot of depth left though,
Yeah.
so we have to make sure that they stay healthy. But I mean, all in all, I felt comfortable about it. We'll see. I mean, they're going to be tested. I mean, that wide receiver core, they're going to test us, and we'll see how well our defensive backs play this week.
What's the impact of not having David Sanders at right tackle?
I mean, when you look at him, he's different.
Mhm.
I mean, that guy is, he is what you think of. When you look at him, you say, well, that guy's going to play in the NFL. He's got that type of, his athleticism. He played in a really good high school in North Carolina at Providence Day, played incredible talent there, one of the best conference in the state, I would say. So he's played in some of that, but it's not the SEC. It's not guys that's getting ready to next year be drafted in the first 2 rounds of the draft. So I think that's maybe why I just give him another, wanting to be 100% healthy where he can be 100% successful the first time he gets an opportunity to start.
This line has played well up to today.
And they have. They played. And it's hard to deny them that, right?
Yep.
The question is he going to be on the sidelines? Is he going to dress?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I'd be surprised if Tennessee doesn't stick with the same lineup,
They will.
even if he's ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I was asking, do they keep him on there in case
Yeah.
something goes wrong and he
Okay.
can go into the game if necessary if we lose a tackle?
Okay. The talent differential between Georgia and Tennessee, we're going to touch on that as well. So Georgia has recruited top 5 ever since Kirby Smart's been there. Tennessee's recruited top 15 under Josh Heupel. The number of 5 stars on each team, Georgia has 13, Tennessee has 4. The number of 4 stars, Georgia has 57, Tennessee has 43. The number of 3 stars, Tennessee's got them there, 29 to 23.
I'll
So,
take my Joey Aguilar with no stars.
well, see that, and so what I was going to get at is I do think it's relevant if you have a whole bunch of 4 and 5 stars.
It
It's
is,
hard
no
to,
question.
it's hard to
It's the
win a national
miss factor,
championship.
right? I mean, it's the miss factor. I mean, if you got 20 of them and you miss on 5 of them, that's right. But if you got 5 of them and you miss on 2 of them, you don't have many left.
And usually your 5 stars are your difference makers. And
They
you
are.
get some difference
Yeah.
makers. Now, having said that, you got a guy with no stars, Joey Aguilar, going against Gunnar Stockton, who I think had 4
4
stars.
stars.
And we're debating who's going to have the better game. So it's not a be all end all as far as the star assignment to players. Look at Tennessee's starting running back. Deshaun Bishop was a walk on. Coastal Carolina was the only team that offered him a scholarship. He bet on himself, went to Tennessee, now he's earned a starting job.
There's a
And-
quarterback playing for Buffalo right now. It's playing really good. The Buffalo
Yeah.
Bills. I don't think he had an offer either, did he?
Yeah, Josh Allen. Well, yeah, Wyoming.
Wyoming, yeah.
Star Thomas, who's leading Tennessee in rushing, went junior college out of high school. So you can't, and so did Aguilar, by the way. You can't always tell based on the star. But this was something, and Adam Sparks with the Knoxville News Sentinel did this, and really does a great job. He looked at the top 40 players on each team, and Georgia in their top 40 has 33 players that are 4 and 5 stars. Tennessee has 23 that are 4 and 5 stars. So the edge to Georgia talent wise. However, don't you think Florida had more talent than South Florida?
I think they did.
And what happened in that game? So you don't know.
You know, I mean, and I struggle with this because there are some players that are truly 4 and 5 stars. But I remember when Navy was going through the process, and we got a call before one of the big elite camps, and the guy was basically saying, "Hey, I'd like to be able to work with your son," and it was really like, "You pay me $5,000, and I'll make sure I give him another star, and he'll be really successful at this camp." And I was like, "This is not good." And lo and behold, you could tell which player actually paid the $5,000 going into that game. And he's no longer playing and never started in college before. I mean, he started but never played well. And it was kind of, I watched Drake May, and his father was there, and he said, "Hey, did you get a phone call?" And I said, "Matter of fact, I did get a phone call." And it was the same way. And of course, Drake's playing with the New England Patriots now. So I don't really get into the 5 star after having we had at Christ School, we had 14 kids in 3 years go to Division 1, and I don't necessarily look at the starring the way others do. And I know that's a barometer that you do, but in all, there's a big difference between high school and college. And it's such a big difference. You just don't know. And are the players, are they at the top of their game out of high school? Are they more mature and physical than they were? And how much, are they got, 2 and 3 more steps to elevate their play? I think there's so many tangibles, and I know they get it right on more than they get it wrong on. But in the reality to it is, I mean, it's a way to keep score that doesn't impact the scoreboard until the game's over.
Well, as you pointed out, you'd rather have 25 stars and miss on 5
Yes,
than
that's
have
right.
23 stars and miss
Miss
on
on a couple.
5. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that can be a difference, but it doesn't mean it's the be all end all
Yeah.
of
I
what an
agree.
outcome could be. All right, let's move on to our next segment. That's brought to you by Matlock Tires. At Matlock Tires, that is a full service tire center. They offer top quality tire brands, expert service, and installation. Matlock Tires has 5 convenient locations to serve you. That's where I go to get my tires and my oil change. That's where Heath Shuler went last week to get his tires.
Sure did.
So that's a great business. That's Matlock Tires. The location we went to was in Farragut, but again, 5 locations to serve you. All right, let's talk about some of the key matchups in this game. We mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Tennessee's run defense and run game. So the run defense has been solid, but they're going against Georgia rotates 3 running backs, and they have not exactly overwhelmed their first 2 opponents in rushing. They ran for a lot of yards against Marshall, not as much against Austin Peay. But Tennessee's been averaging 250 yards rushing per game. They've led the SEC in rushing each of the last 2 years. But against Georgia, with Heupel as the coach, Tennessee's barely they're getting like 108 yards rushing per game. Heath, how important is running the football effectively against Georgia?
I think some of those statistics are because we had no ability to throw the football.
Hmm.
And so we ultimately ended up going. They put more players in the box defensively, and then we still couldn't run the ball when we needed to run it. They put more in there because they were able to go outside one on one. We couldn't get the ball to them in the passing game. So I think even though we're talking about the running game, we have to be successful in the passing game, or then we can be successful in the run game.
All right, so that brings me to this. You talked about the pass game. What's one of the big reasons Tennessee struggled in that regard? The receivers have not been able to beat press coverage.
That's right.
If you go back to 4 years ago, when the first time Tennessee was against Georgia, Tennessee's wide receivers had like 16 catches, 256 yards. Last year, they had like wide receivers, six catches,
Six catches.
44. And I'm not talking about slot receivers. I'm talking about guys on the line of scrimmage that have to beat press coverage. That's going to be big for Tennessee, isn't it? To beat
It is.
Georgia's press coverage.
Yeah, and that'll be the question: is who's going to, going into the season, we had question mark at the quarterback. I think we got that one checked. I think he's done very well. I think our receivers have gotten better, but they haven't played the talent. This will be the game that we will decide whether or not we've got the right receivers. I think they have the talent. Browswell, had a big game last week. Matthews is playing well. I think the question is who's going to be that third guy that's going to step up? Who's really going to be that third receiver to come in and start making some plays? I'm glad we have two guys. Now we just need for that third guy to step up. And the question will we be able to get off the line of scrimmage?
Yeah. And you mentioned the run game tied to the passing game. One thing that Tennessee's done against Georgia that has been successful against most everybody is when they spread the field, they get favorable numbers in the box. Even with favorable numbers in the box, they've had trouble running against Georgia because of Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and first round NFL draft picks.
Yes.
So Tennessee's
right.
got to figure out some way. I'm going to put the number, they need to get 125 rushing yards or more. That's the number I think Tennessee needs to get in this game. Unless they throw for 400.
I think we need more. I think we're going to need more than 125 yards rushing. I think I hope you're right, but I think that we're going to have more. I think it's going to be that type of play because, when they're talented. I mean, that's a talented football team. But I think if we got to that 140, 150, I'd feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. By the way, Georgia's outrushed Tennessee 167 yards to 108 yards in the last four meetings. That's Josh Heupel going against the Georgia Bulldogs. Okay, here's another number that's kind of interesting. Tennessee has had 3 sacks in its 4 losses to Georgia under Heupel. Georgia's had 18 sacks against Tennessee.
First round draft picks, like you said.
Yeah, huge difference. Got to protect the quarterback.
Yeah, protect the quarterback and but have the ability to run too. I think Joey's got that ability to run. He needs to protect himself. But I mean, it's all about the protection, and it goes back to the other question that we had. We had first game of the season. We talked about it. Question mark under receivers.
Yep.
Question mark under the offensive line. Those two will be tested like no other this week, and we'll find out where we really are.
Tennessee in 2022 led the nation in first quarter scoring. They averaged right at 14 points a game in the first quarter.
Yep.
Through 2 games, Tennessee has outscored its opponents 41-0. That's 20.5 points in the first quarter. Level of competition has not been very good. But having said that, how important is it for Tennessee to get off to a fast start to garner confidence, get the crowd into it, and maybe rattle Georgia's confidence?
Well, there's nothing better that can happen. I think, what year was it? Was it the last time Georgia was here when the first play from scrimmage we get a touchdown?
Jalen Wright took
Jalen
the
Wright,
long
yeah.
run.
Yeah, the long run. So that was good. I think it set some record on the noise level.
Yeah.
But we need that. It's almost like we're here, but we didn't do anything to capitalize after that.
Yeah.
I mean, we really didn't. And it was almost like it didn't impact Georgia. Like, it's one play, we're back. We didn't do anything else to kind of build upon that. One play can make a difference, and it's the momentum difference in the game. Early on, I think it's about consistency, about moving the chains, not necessarily about the big play, but can I move the chains? That gives you more confidence than one play does. If you're able to get first down, So to me, third down, whoever wins that third down battle and the percentages is going to be, I think they're going to have by far the best opportunity. And it's probably rightfully so. Who usually wins the third down battle wins the game. But I think that third down is going to be key to us. And as I said earlier, the most important down that we will have going into this game will be first down. We have to pick up yardage on first down. We
Got to
can't.
stay ahead of the chain.
We got to stay ahead of the change because there's going to be times they stop us, and there'll be times we stop them. But our first down production has to be far better than Georgia's.
Georgia's won 8 in a row in this series. Tennessee, years ago in the 90s into the 2000s, won 9 in a row. That's the record for the most consecutive wins in
Yeah.
the series. Georgia's now at 8. Does Georgia come in with a confidence because of that? Does Tennessee in the back of its mind think, well, they've beaten us 8 in a row? Or,
I don't think that has anything to do with the past.
and why not?
From a player's perspective, you're focused on what's happening now. You don't focus on. You could probably look at, hey, Georgia's they got all these 5 stars and 4 stars, and they won national championships recently. You can look at it that way, but I don't think it has anything to do with the number of times they beat. I think because every team feels like they're different than the year before, and so they have their own identity, and I think that we got a different identity than we had last year.
Well, here's why I don't think it's as big a deal either. Because Joey Aguilar was at Appy State.
He was, yes.
Star Thomas was at Duke.
Duke.
2 of your starting offensive linemen were at different schools, Arizona and Notre Dame. So you've got a different group. But I actually think 20 or 30 years ago, I think it had a bigger impact.
I would agree.
Because you had a lot of the same players
That's
that were
it's so true. Yeah, because you had the same players playing year in and year out, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to get beat again, right? I never felt that, but I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure that people, oh, here we go again.
Well, you beat Florida twice, if I remember. You were on teams that beat them, 90 and
Yeah.
92.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought it got into the Tennessee heads when Spurrier was there a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that necessarily applies now with
No.
all the transfer portal and the different
It's a different makeup.
that you have. So, any other keys to the game that we have not mentioned yet?
The biggest key to the game will be us fans. We gotta bring our A game, right? We gotta bring the A game. So sleep well, you get a good night's rest, get up early, be prepared, show up early, because it's going to be a great afternoon in Neyland Stadium.
I want to ask you about this too, because there are a lot of lines out there. There are a lot of the Vegas lines and different folks. Earlier, I saw Georgia favored by 7.5, and then recently I saw Georgia favored by 3.5. What in the world?
That's a lot of Tennessee fans. That's a lot of Tennessee fans pulling for Tennessee.
Is that
I
what
think it is.
So Georgia fans aren't betting on Georgia?
I don't think they are. I don't think they
They're
are.
worried.
What have they seen this year that would give them confidence to do so?
The one thing I know, you shouldn't put too much confidence on playing weak opponents at the start of the year. I have seen teams almost like play possum.
Yeah, you
Against
play up to
teams.
your talent. You play up to your
And
talent.
Georgia has done some of that in the
Yeah.
past. And I expect to see a much different Georgia team than I saw against Austin P. and Marshall. I expect to see a better Tennessee. Well, not necessarily better than ETSU because they scored 72, but I think there'll be more focus. And and by the way, I don't think this moment is going to be too big for Joey Aguilar.
For something, there's just about his poise that I see that.
Here's all right. So now it's time to make a prediction. All
I
right.
knew this was coming.
Okay.
We didn't do that last week.
No, we didn't. We didn't need to. No, I wouldn't have picked 72 points, but I think I was 49-10 or something like that. All right. So what you got? Tennessee by how much?
Well, Tennessee will win the football game, and I think it's going to be by a field goal. We're going to win by a field goal. So for some reason, I think we're going to play. We're going to score more points. Both teams may score more points than I think. Everybody else, I think, is predicting a lower scoring game.
I am. I think
Yeah.
it'll be low scoring.
Yeah, and it very well may be
Yeah.
because of both defenses are so strong, right? And you got a young quarterback, but there's just something about tells me that Gosh. Okay. I'm rethinking. So
Well, you beat them
21-24,
21-20. All right.
Tennessee.
So I've got Georgia 23-16. I think it's going to
Okay.
be a low-scoring, close game. Tennessee will have a chance to win. Aaron Murray, the former Georgia quarterback, said at the Knoxville Quarterback Club, this is Tennessee's best chance he's seen in a long time. I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
and this is not the Georgia of the 2021, 2022 national championship teams. They're not as good as they were. So that gives Tennessee a puncher's chance. I think Tennessee will go toe-to-toe with them. I just think Georgia, I'm not going to say they have more 5 stars. Because you'll jump on. But I think they got a little bit of an edge there, and they're so used
They
to
do have.
playing in big games.
I think they do have some
Yeah.
talent advantages. in
So,
places.
but I see that as being a really tight game that the Georgia managed to win by about a touchdown. So
I think this year for Coach Heichel, I really do.
it
This-
very well could be.
this
Well,
Coach
and if
Heupel-
it is, they're going to storm the field. They don't care about any fines. They will be on. I'm telling you, they'll be
It
on
will
the
happen.
field. So, and heck, I can't blame them too much. Hey, we want to thank A.G. Hyams and Company for having us here. We really appreciate them. We also appreciate all of our sponsors. Heath
Yeah.
Shuler, thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
We appreciate you watching and listening. And we'll be back again next week to recap the Georgia game and talk about Tennessee football. This has been